Hey, Paul. Welcome to the conversation that has been uh, drawn out for 2 years.
Was it seriously 2 years ago?
Nah, maybe it was only 1.5. I don't know. So I've thought of a lot of different ways to start the show, but I don't really know which one to do. On my way back, I just got a drink from 7-Eleven, and I thought maybe the best way would be what prompted you to say we need to do this conversation again?
You had been messaging me on Twitter, and I didn't, let's see, for a long time I didn't feel like responding because I'm a bad friend. And then I
Pretty
replied,
normal. I do the same thing to people. I mean, not that you shouldn't feel bad, but just know that
yeah,
I do that same thing to
okay,
people. So maybe
yeah.
that takes away some of the sting.
Well, yeah, it's nice to know we're in a similar boat, but I do still feel bad. Um, see, I guess I just feel a little less afraid to talk about it. I feel like there's a lot of I feel like I've gathered more
Did the
ways
first
to.
conversation structure some like ponderings
Um,
at all? Or no? That's what I imagined.
I don't have a great memory, so I don't really remember everything we
That's
said.
the thing I was going to say too is like, should we talk about what we should be summarize what we talked about last time that got
I have
erased?
I have no idea. I feel like we should just go into this fresh, and if you remember something from last time, bring it up for sure.
The
But
only thing I remember is like sort of one prompt. I remember we talked about just our experience with girls and in our lives, like relationships, and I think like I don't remember. That was the one part I do remember. It was
all
maybe
right.
an hour conversation.
Well, why don't you just set up what is the question that we're trying to resolve by talking?
So we're basically, do you know the Me Too movement?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna solve that
Oh,
right now.
dang.
Yeah, that's what
Well,
we're gonna do right
our
now.
last convo was pre Me Too,
It was pro Me Too.
pre Me Too,
I know
right?
that was I was thinking about that too on the way back. Was like what when we were talking about this last time, I don't think Me Too was named. Like the idea was happening sort of, but it didn't exactly have a name yet. It wasn't
Well,
the hashtag Me Too movement from what I
the
know.
the good news is I just completed my harassment training at work,
Oh,
so I know all about how to not harass
did
people.
did everyone have to do that? Was that a new thing?
Yeah, it was like a company-wide thing.
Wow. Any good and point no any good notes?
Uh, I don't know. It seemed pretty common sense. I feel like a lot of the stuff that they're telling you not to do are things like I would never do to anybody outside the
Do you
office.
think that it's just gotten to the point where people need to hear it explicitly sometimes?
I think so. I don't know. I
Do you
don't
think that
know.
people always needed that?
I don't think so. I think people, I would assume that most people in the past hundreds of years grew up with like I don't really like this like uh I grew up in a different time, back when it was totally cool to harass women,
Hmm.
like especially from like the kind of relatively conservative tradition I'm from. That was never cool.
It was never
Um,
cool.
it was never cool. Like I
You mean like the brazen attitude, like, yo, dude. It's like it's almost like romanticizing the dynamic between men and women, like the folkloric dynamic,
there's like
where
a folklore dynamic that like it's kind of like the Mad Men version of history,
yeah,
right?
hmm
Here's the thing: a lot of people never lived in New York in the '60s. Like a
hmm
lot of people, uh, you know, uh, didn't have sex before they were married. A lot of people like had went on dates that were chaperoned, that kind of thing.
hmm
Like that is a very common thing in a lot of our culture, a lot of American culture going way back. So uh, the I think like a post sexual revolution workplace that is half men, half women that are all relatively young and ambitious, like is probably harder to keep uh, keep good.
What do
I
you
also,
what
well,
do you
you
mean?
just, well, I think about this a lot in the sense of like me outside of the context of my hometown. I feel like a lot more like liberated, and
Yeah.
there's a lot fewer repercussions. Like being a young person in the city away from your parents and your like older social structure, you feel a lot fewer repercussions for acting wrongly um, towards other people because or just acting it. You feel free to act in ways that your parents or your grandparents
Yeah.
or whoever the old lady down the street wouldn't approve of,
You
and
feel
so
like some sort
and I
of
think that can be dangerous.
some sort oh what? Oh, I didn't expect that twist at the end. Wait.
Well, there's a danger of feeling that there aren't repercussions for your actions,
Oh, okay.
right?
Okay. Yeah. I guess. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think?
No, I thought you were, but I guess you didn't tag that end on there. But but I feel like the idea that you shouldn't be thinking about your parents, what they would say, is maybe good for some people. That like because I mean you shouldn't always be thinking about that. I think like a sense of autonomy is like a healthy dose of autonomy is good. A
Yeah,
feeling
but
of independence.
I agree. I just my thinking is that
That's all.
it
I
would be
thought you were going like the total opposite. Like you should always be thinking about what your parents would think.
the thinking is that okay, you want to harass somebody. Uh, you think of what your parents will think, and then you don't harass somebody. I think
Uh,
that's preferable to you want to harass somebody, and then you don't think of anybody but yourself, and then you harass
yeah,
somebody. Like given those two situations, if that was the actual binary, and that's obviously not the real binary in the world,
yeah.
but that is one potential safeguard, I guess.
So you just feel like. So wait, what's the whole point about this? That people alone, young people, you're never going to control them because you feel like they have this like new sense of like um, of like uh, recklessness.
Well, I'm just saying that it's not an old-fashioned ideal of harassing women in the workplace. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't really get it. Like, you're saying that anybody at a certain age, when they're getting away from their parents, they have this like initial burst of like, I can't hurt. Like, I, I, they were the ones that would punish me for this. Now there are no punishments.
I mean, maybe. I'm just saying that parents are one potential safeguard against a problem, and I'm what I'm saying is that there's an excuse that comes up among harassers that have been pointed out by the Me Too movement, saying, well, I grew up in a different time,
Mm-hmm.
and like yes, maybe your industry in the 70s was really bad to women, but that's not how it has been always everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I also feel like the you can't teach an old dog. Like I think, yeah. I mean, it's. I guess you're saying it's less time based and more like pockets of culture based.
Yeah, I think how are you gonna?
But I'd say it is generally time based because of the representation of like women in the media, and that gets sort of like I don't know spread out.
What do you mean?
The like media doesn't have a geographic location and sort of like can reach people in all locations and sort of like it changes like the folklore a little bit over time. I'd
Hmm.
say you can generally it's shifting toward like better treatment for women, better representation. And that because it's like, reaching people in other ways, it's not always just geographically limited.
Yeah, that's true. We do have kind of a shared culture in that sense.
Um, so yeah, so no lessons from the talk. Any good? Remember any good parts?
From the
Harassment
harassment
training.
training.
Yeah.
Let me think. There was this guy that would his coworker had like a really mean nickname for him,
Mm.
and he really hated that. One thing I realized is that a lot of something that kind of on like all the bullet points was always listing like something that is like a potential harassment is blocking the path. Are you aware of this?
Blocking the path.
There's
Is it
something that
physically or metaphorically?
physically. So like
Okay.
a creepy guy move is to like stand in the doorway and kind of put your arm up to kind of like
Ah.
block the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a mannerism, but it's also kind of a power play.
Yeah.
Um, it's weird. Yeah, I
I
talked to a
guess. I
friend. I
guess
talked
though,
to a
like
friend about it, and she had like experienced something very much like that. And it's kind of like cornering somebody. I feel like you wouldn't want to do that to like basically anybody to make them feel cornered. You know?
yeah. I think what you said about that sort of a move being unconscious or just like somebody's habits, like they don't even realize they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like below any sort of consciousness. Like the woman might be feeling some pressure, but he might not. I feel like that's the kind of stuff that still, like, I know you feel like maybe where you're from like probably treats women really well, but like at least where I'm from, like there's just like a lot of little ways that things just like that are like in the gray area that upon reflection now I can see it all, not all of it but a lot of it.
Like, what do you mean? Like, do you
Like
have to be
you like, of
specific?
course, like the like people, you're saying people would never everybody's all about like respecting women where you're from. I forget exactly what you said.
That's not what
I
I
forget your
said.
words.
That's
And
not what I said.
but I'm saying, of course you would say that, but meanwhile there might be things like that, mannerisms that are just like vestiges of this folkloric dynamic that just have not been um, just they're still left over in the system, like still left over in the our collection
Hmm.
of norms, our society. And so when I see the Me Too movement, it's like they're railing against all those little things that are just so hard that we're just teasing them out, and it's so hard for men to even see them sometimes,
Hmm.
especially the
Well,
older men. Like, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like they've been doing these things for so long. Like, this is like who they are. And so there's something that feels natural and innate about some of these things.
yeah. I mean, it's super multi-layered. So maybe we can approach it from a bunch of different things. I do think that it could be helpful to have a list of things that you shouldn't do, and it's helpful sometimes to hear. But like, I was struck by the blocking the path thing
Uh-huh.
because I feel like I wouldn't have the instinct to do that to basically anybody. Like that goes along the lines of like liking to sit on a seat like facing the door in a restaurant,
Yeah.
like that sort of like
But
comfort, or like you wouldn't want to like box anybody in, like you could feel claustrophobic
okay,
or
think of
that
it
kind
this
of thing.
way. Think of it this way. You're thinking of it as like they're angry at you. Like, I don't know, but think of it more. I wrote this down in my notes. Something to talk about, just like a good cultural bullet point that
Mm-hmm.
like something that like keeps shocking me every time I look back on it
Okay.
is the character of Pepe Le Pew.
Mm,
Because that is like sexual harassment made cute and quaint. It's
mm,
almost like you almost feel bad for him because she keeps rejecting him. And so if you see yourself as a modern day Pepe Le Pew,
right.
blocking a path is like the most mild form of Pepe you can be, but you can think of it as a little bit cute.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is important. So what I was saying, multiple layers.
Okay.
To harass somebody, you need to have the wrong concept of them, right? Like the wrong mental image of their worth and what is good for them and what it feels safe to them, and or you need to have the wrong concept of yourself, like what you deserve,
Hmm.
um, what's good for you, and um, and then you also need to have the wrong concept of what you can get away with.
Hmm.
Um, if you think of, obviously a lot of the guys who've been found out recently thought they could get away with, but they maybe were right for way too many years, but they were ultimately wrong about what they could get away with. Um, and so
Hmm.
I think there's a bunch of different like it's important to figure out, uh, to have a high concept of the worth and independence and safety of the women around you. There's also important to have sort of a low concept of what you deserve from others, because I think
Hmm.
that's a really dangerous thing.
But I just
Uh,
like okay, but I feel like all these concepts are all like okay, how do you enforce these concepts?
well,
But I guess what I'm saying is like I'm going back to Pepe Le Pew, the way that those all of those concepts become ingrained in people is a lot like it is through action with one another, but it's also through like portrayal in media.
right. So Le Pew has the wrong concept of his potential suitor, or I don't know, that's not the right word. His romantic interest. He has the wrong concept of her. Uh, he's got the wrong
I
concept
mean,
of
I don't know if we should
himself.
even talk about she was a cat also. Like it always turns out like she was a cat, the excellent black cat that got us one white stripe on her, and he's like, oh shit.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I just remember him like a really smug skunk.
Yeah, no, and he would just kiss her. He was, and I feel like what that idea that like men are allowed to sort of just like be all over, like pursue them almost like prey, is in for a long time was sort of accepted as like, well, that's sort of how it is, and so if it's happening to you, like, just try to get away like the cat.
Yeah, so okay. Back to kind of like the cultural conservatism. There's a concept of let's say you want to have sex, and and you've identified a potential target for having sex, right?
Hmm.
If the only barrier to you having sex with this person is is their ability to say yes or no to you, it's kind of it's already kind of a tense situation, you know.
Hmm.
Like it's good to have other reasons, like, oh well, I'm this person's boss, you know. Oh, like going back to my religious conservative parents might not like it, like having other reasons not to are other good barriers. But I don't know. Ultimately, in a big picture sense, I don't think we can control people or manage people, or determine people very well at all as a society. It's very important ultimately how people um, act themselves, and the sort of social safety net that they build up around themselves, and the positive, role models that they build up around themselves. Like maybe you are like an old dog, and you've got all these bad habits about it, but maybe you make friends with a good person who reminds you of all of these things, and maybe you push back at first, but over time you get better. Like I don't see any like other like macro plan to fix this.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
it's individual improvement, and so knowledge and
Um,
awareness is really good, but people themselves will have to decide to be better.
But don't you think that it's like a sort of collective problem?
I mean, it's a problem in the sense of it's a problem. Um, like it's hard to.
I guess I'm saying to help the people come to really see themselves. Don't you think that it's like a sort of problem of like communication? Like you're saying it's up to people to change or whatever, but like I just don't. I think change always comes from other people, and if people, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I feel like it's not an individual's problem. Like it is, yes, like we all have to participate, but I also feel like it's a thing that would be a lot more productive if it was thought of as a collective issue.
Yeah, we could definitely be collectively responsible for talking to the people in our own lives, but I guess the thing
I get
is that you can't do a trust fall into society and assume society will make you moral.
yeah, yeah, but you are constantly doing a trust fall into society, whether or not you like it,
Right,
and whether or not they catch you.
okay, but yeah, if you are relying entirely on your trust fall into society, if you trust fall into a society that is let's say you fall into a workplace culture that is toxic,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to go along with that, right? You have to you be able to define what is right and wrong
Mm-hmm.
to a higher standard than necessarily the people around you.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying all you are is pieces of those people. So, in my opinion,
You
um,
think the people surrounding you just define you entirely?
I mean, if we're going nature versus nurture about like how much is you, like it, I mean, I know you like believe in a spirit, so you believe like that thing is like the
Hmm.
exterior you. But to me, no, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that you're made up of your environment. You're just a sort of reaction to your environment, and maybe temperaments. Like I'm really like very similar to my grandpa in a lot of ways, like
Right.
behaviorally. And I didn't spend like a ton of time around him. It's probably because there's some biology that we share that like our like rhythm of thought or whatever is the same.
Right.
But no, I really do think that you're almost like a blank hard drive almost. I mean,
Oh, dude, no. If you're
I don't want to. I'm not
deterministic,
going to say that. I wouldn't say that metaphor, but I
if you're
would say something
determined,
like that metaphor.
if you
I
are
don't. I know.
determined,
I don't want to say computer metaphor. I know it's
if
bad.
you if you are determined by external forces, then you have no moral agency, and therefore
Oh no. I
you can
mean, I'm
blame
not
every
saying.
bad thing you do on someone else's influence.
Oh no, no. I do. But okay. Yeah. Okay. So, but I think you have control. I think you. I'm not. Okay. I'm saying you're a piece of everything, but that's like a learning thing, and then you make yourself. You
Okay, so
do.
the
It's
to
like
use a
it's a
computer,
construction.
the people around you in the culture and society are the inputs to a program, and then you determine the algorithm and what you actually output
It's
from that input.
um.
You
Yeah.
determine your
Yeah.
own
I guess so.
actions,
I guess
but those
it's more like
are based
I'm
on
stealing up there. I'm stealing bits and pieces of their software and swapping it, and really like the sum is greater than, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Like I do think that, like even though I'm taking a metaphor that's just like basically Frankensteining everyone around me into one individual person, I do think that that new Frankenstein is
okay.
worth something more than all the pieces.
Okay, but let's say you're Frankensteining, right? You're like,
Okay.
oh, okay, I don't like the way this person is in this one part of their life, but I love this other thing. I'm going to take the thing that
Mm-hmm.
I think is good and
Yeah.
add it to my life. But what is your method for determining what is good or bad?
Um. Yeah, I mean that's just like from learning through learning. It is. Look, I don't know what I would say that it's through modeling your decisions after other people's who would be in similar situations, what they would do. It's a lot of things. I mean, it's you do have. I think you have free will, but your free will is based upon models that exist in our life. It's like when it's like, yeah, it's we are each other's models, and you base yourself upon those. That's at least the way I see it, and at least the way that I mean, I read a decent amount of books about the brain. I think that is through just interaction with the world that we construct ourselves. And I guess, oh, you want to know? I I'm not sure how you like get a self, and but I wonder if it's something to do with like just like a shorthand for like this is the way the world seems to work, like the basic like here's how I see the world and here's how you should act because this, and then it just gets all simplified down to like everything goes back to like some initial core, and then like echoes out of that. Would you agree or no?
I think there is a material to the self that is um, more than the sum of the inputs, or more than a remix of the inputs. I do think that is a lot of what the self is, though. It's like what we have, how we have categorized things, how we have defined our own terms, and how we have, like what we've picked up. But I feel like there's something more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a real conflicted um, view around like um, spirituality and religion and stuff like that because on the one hand, it was really bad to a lot of people for a long time. Um, and like it's sort of like ignorant towards science sometimes, like just look at the facts or whatever. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, I think the idea that like that I have a spirit and I'm connected to God and stuff, and that I could talk to Him. I think that that's a really useful thing because of the placebo effect, because like that's a real thing that like can actually make you, you know, fight cancer better. It's like a thing that just like boosts your attitude and makes you believe you could do things you couldn't. And the only way that the placebo effect works is if you believe that there's like you can't just say, "Oh, this is the placebo effect working." You have to actually believe in God. You have to actually believe you took the pill you took. You have to believe it all. And so, like, part of me is like, okay, yeah, if I want to unlock my human potential, which is like like this placebo effect, which is like a superpowering my brain or whatever, then I need to like be bullshitting myself in some way. And so, how do I bullshit myself in a way that I can be okay with?
Yeah, I disagree. I've heard that argument a lot. It's
From
funny.
me or no? From a lot of
No,
people.
from there's this term now called Christian atheists. Have you heard of this?
No.
They're people who have basically decided that the fundamental tenets of Christianity are a good force in the world, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore they are fine with Christians
Mm-hmm.
who are pushing these ideas, but they don't believe that in the Christian God, or that there is a God, or at least they're agnostic about it. And so they don't have like a true Christian faith. They have a faith that the set of beliefs of Christians are useful for society.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're kind of lacking the prior definition of what is the ultimate good, like what is useful, what is like the ideal. And you have um, like sometimes in history, Christians are very ascendant and successful in society, and so that's like when you get like a Catholic Church, like you have like the power center of Rome. Like you want to be a Christian because that's how you get ahead in life, right? But there's other times and places where Christians have been persecuted, and it's not how you get ahead in life; it's how you get, killed, or at least you have to hide all the time or be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's something beyond being effective or useful in society or for a society in Christian belief. I do think it's literally true, and that God literally exists.
The thing is, yeah, I would. I mean, I guess I agree. I was just saying I want to tap into the placebo effect. mainly.
but you don't get the placebo effect if you think it's a placebo.
Yeah, exactly. So these guys aren't getting it either. They're just saying that those are some good values.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, okay, should I read my should I read my disclaimer?
Oh yeah.
Maybe this will
Forgot
help.
about
Okay. I hope this was good. I wrote this like really. I was like, I just got to get this down. I wrote it in a fury yesterday.
it. 2 pages.
Well, I'm only going to read. The first page was like a sort of structuring of my argument. We've already, I don't know. Maybe it's okay. I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'll read my disclaimer, because sometimes when I say like, because we need to talk about guys and gals pretty soon here. And if we're talking, sometimes I'll be like, guys want the power, or guys want the, like, if I say anything that's like stereotypical guy, or a girl, like I've heard it said like, well, that's not because it's biological, and I'm always like, okay, yeah, no, I know, but it's like so ingrained in our culture that it's like almost code now, like. So my basic here's, I'll just read my disclaimer. Disclaimer: when I'm talking about men and women, I'm not saying any of their behavior is a result of inherent biological reasons. I'm saying it's a stereotypical or common folklore, something cultural that has endured vestigially in our habits and norms. I do wonder about the nature versus nurture question when it comes to behavior stereotypes, but I lean heavily towards nurture on this one. I think it's up to people through better representation in media interactions, diverse storytellers, and slowly, hopefully, we can, faster than we expect, develop new characters, new habits of relation that respond to true diversity of whatever identity and being a human being or anything is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that was my thesis. Is I feel like it's up to us to like remake what gender is. Do you think we have to end gender? The idea in
No,
general?
I don't think so.
What do you think about the spectrum?
I don't. Oh, can I say my disclaimer?
Yeah.
Please don't hate me.
I'll say a disclaimer too, that like I just think it's really important for people to talk, and like if people are afraid to say stuff, that's not good. Okay.
Yeah.
In general, I think we both agree on that. And just because this is recorded doesn't mean that like these aren't really bad thoughts. I mean, I guess I'm saying is like we might say some really bad stuff, but it's really just because you need to say it sometimes to like make it real, to like bounce it around, to
Yeah.
like know what it
Yeah.
sounds like and feels like, and that's all
Very much.
conversation is. And that
There you
that
go.
that spirit is what I like. This is a B-side, but that spirit of like bouncing ideas around and it being okay to do that is like the thing that I hope that we can bring back to the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you know what I
Yeah.
mean, that feeling I don't think is there.
I'm very much in agreement. Very much agreement. Um, uh, so I don't think gender is a spectrum. I think it is very, very closely tied to biological sex. But my big thing though, and did you read the James Damore memo when it came out?
No, I don't even know who this is. I'm sorry.
James Damore is a guy at Google who wrote a memo. It was an internal
Oh,
memo.
okay. Yes. I don't
He
think I read it. Maybe I
he
did,
was
but I completely forgot it.
he was trying, in his words, he was trying to improve diversity at Google, but it got characterized as an anti-diversity memo. But I think one of the important things that he points out is that there are there are like pro like the idea of like bell curves, like it's very probable, or there's more of this in one gender and more of this in the other gender, right? Like there are
Mm-hmm.
the things that we think of kind of as gender stereotypes are more like 60% of the people with this trait are this gender, or it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a majority wins, but it's definitely not
Yeah.
like only men can be this way and only women can be this way and women can
Yeah.
only be this way and men can only be this way. So what we typically think of as gender traits, I think it's actually kind of damaging to the workplace and to diversity, because if you think about it, let's say uh, like something that James Damore pointed out is that um, social people like the practice of peer programming. Antisocial people don't like peer programming. Peer programming is this thing where you sit down next to somebody, or typically the way you do it is uh, you have a pilot and you have a navigate. I don't know. There's two terms. Basically, one
Yeah.
person does all the typing so that the other person is only doing abstract thinking about programming.
Mm-hmm.
And then you like will switch places, or maybe somebody prefers
Mm-hmm.
one role or the other. And it's been very successful at some. A lot of software companies have instituted a lot of this. But the thing is not everybody likes it. And his thing is like more social people might gravitate towards this. Also, on average, the majority of it, or however you want to caveat the fact that this is not deterministic, this is not everybody, but maybe more women would prefer this method of programming, and more of the men, especially like that. This I'm not. These aren't James Damore's words, but like that stereotypical Asperger's-y programmer, might
Yeah.
be very happy and content to program alone and wouldn't want to pair program, or maybe they would. I really have no idea. But by
Mm.
basically creating a workplace that allows different types of competency to,
Neurodiversity.
is that what it's called?
Yep.
Narrow diversity. Interesting.
Neurodiver. It's like appreciating like all different kinds of like no matter like if yeah like Asperger's like autism spectrum like it's all good is what neurodiversity sort of
Well,
thing
but
is.
but but the idea is it's not just trying to recruit for a diversity of a bunch of different um, types of people. It's having ways to succeed as a bunch of different kinds of people. And so, like for me, for instance, there's like a real stereotype of a like a kind of a domineering guy who is loves the fight,
Mm-hmm.
loves to fight for a raise, fight for credit, fight for promotions, fight for oversight of big new projects, things like that.
Yeah.
I really, uh, I definitely don't run towards the fight. And in that sense, I am like, it kind of holds me back at work a little bit because I'm not really eager to, to, to push in those ways. Um, and at the same time, I know plenty of women who are way more aggressive and assertive than I am at work,
Mm-hmm.
So finding ways that less aggressive, less assertive people can be just as successful at your company as, or at least satisfied and productive at your company. I feel like that's like an important part of this whole thing.
Yeah. So it seems I don't know if this is what you're implying. You're implying that women are better communicators biologically, and also sometimes you were saying like you're actually less like loud and like commanding than some girls, but you implied that that's atypical and that most women are like more meek and quiet and agreeable, I guess.
It's more the I think the technical way to say it. I wish I knew the technical way to say it. The technical way to say it is that like given 100 or 50 guys and 50 girls, it's more likely that you're going to find more guys that are assertive than you're going to find girls that are assertive, right?
Possibly, yes, but I wouldn't say that's nature. Is like I
So
guess where
you
the big
don't think
difference
that's
is.
nature. You don't think that's nature.
No, no.
Well, so because what's important is that let's say I don't want to live in a world where everybody's top assertive, you know?
No, I agree.
And so it's
I guess what
important
you're
to
getting at, I like if you're just saying neurodiversity and diversity in general, yes. And I feel like all I'm saying is we don't have to be constricted to these two binary like ways of being or these two like metaphors for like um communicative shut off. dominant, submissive, alpha, beta, like that
Right.
to me, that binary, like that binary way of thinking is getting in the way of even more like constructive ways of being,
Yeah,
more diverse
exactly.
ways of being.
For instance, like I don't want, let's say, I don't want someone to show up and say, "Oh, Paul, we see you are struggling with being domineering as your gender stereotype suggests you should be." Let's
Mm-hmm.
trade you to be domineering. Like, well, like
Mm-hmm.
there are certain things in my life that I view as like flaws that I would like to improve to be more effective as a person. But there's also things that I view as part of my personality and part of what makes me special. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to have to get rid of everything that makes me special to fit into a stereotype. And I think I'm sure there are a lot of women who wouldn't want to get rid of what they view as their core character and personality in order to succeed at work. And
Yeah.
so assuming that we need to turn everybody into an alpha male, the stereotype of an alpha male to go forward in society, and that it's bad that some people are less assertive or less shouty. Like
Yeah. No.
how you deal at work with somebody who is less assertive and less shouty.
Yeah.
You are aware of them and you ask them questions. And it turns out while they were busy not being assertive and shouty, they were thinking stuff over in their head, and now they have maybe a better answer than all of the people who are being assertive and shouty. It's really good to have people around like those. You don't want to like turn everybody into one personality type.
Yeah, I agree, and I just think like nobody. I don't think that either gender is set to be any more communicative or any less dominant or submissive. Like I feel like those things, any difference there is, I think is either so small it's negligible or non-existent.
So so here's something that I've been thinking about, and it kind of is what I feel like is a possibly, it's not an innate difference isn't the right word, but like there are more men like this that I'm aware of than women like this. And again, could be cultural, like you were just saying. But I was listening to a machine learning podcast, right?
Okay.
And I mean, I didn't ask them to make the podcast like this, but the way they were doing this podcast is that it was a guy and a girl, a man and a woman, and the woman would set up the episode. She'd like introduce what the topic, and she would ask one question to this guy, and then he would spend the rest of the episode answering that question. And it wasn't like she was like not getting a chance to like jump in or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like that was their format of the show, is that she was
Prompt
presenting,
and then a
she
long
she was
answer.
providing a friendly face and a prompt, and then
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while they would talk back and forth a little bit, and then all of a sudden this podcast they had a episode about the lack of representation of women
Mm-hmm.
in this industry, and it kind of, I don't know, machine learning is an interesting one because it goes in and out of vogue, and it had spent kind of a while out of vogue, right? And so you had people who were basically committing career suicide studying artificial intelligence robots, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, those stupid dorks, and they love their
Mm-hmm.
robots and so much. And it was very, very, very much mostly men. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like the barrier to entry was the risk to career, but the barrier to entry wasn't like they were like, as far as I can tell, keeping people out in some sort of protect. They weren't trying to protect their successful empire because they were the losers of the of academy. And then all of a sudden, machine learning in the past 5 years, I would say, has
Mm-hmm.
become so huge, and it's like the highest paying, like automatic, like you're automatically, if you know how to do machine learning programming, you're automatically hired, and you get like paid like 130, $150,000 a year if you're good, easily. It's huge, hugely in demand, and so now all of a sudden, and that's what I think I was kind of resentful about. It's like, oh, all of a sudden you're really worried about diversity in this field because um, it is mostly men, but it's like you weren't worried about diversity in this field when it was a failing field and it wasn't, you know,
Yeah, because it's
it
like not
wasn't
really
lucrative.
affecting anybody.
Right.
I would just I mean the whole time I was just thinking like, well, like I think it's important for machine learning to have diverse people working on it because of what it is.
Hmm.
And so whether or not the dudes have been sticking it out over the dry season doesn't really matter now. Now that it's like running our lives, it's really important to get as many different types of people working on it as possible.
And obviously, yeah, they shouldn't make walls to entry, but basically the walls to entry in machine learning are studying it,
Yeah.
studying the math required and the program required and the
Yeah.
statistics required. The, and I guess that's the thing. Yes, we should strive for diversity in machine learning, but we shouldn't blame the guys who were in it for a long time for the lack of diversity. It's not their
Mm-hmm.
fault. Like they couldn't choose on behalf of someone else that that other person would also come
Yeah.
along on this terrible journey with them. They were.
What was the attitude? Like shame on you guys?
I guess maybe I'm projecting that, but I kind of feel that every once in a while. Like for instance, like the company I work at, Vox,
Mm-hmm.
publishes a diversity report, and that report is celebrates when the pie slice that is white men gets smaller, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I know and I feel like if I'm more rational about it and more charitable about it, that's just celebrating that we've hired more diverse people to be part of our staff and more diverse voices, and that's great. But my cynical view of it is like we're celebrating the like it's not like kind of like we're getting rid of our white male vestiges,
Mm-hmm.
or we're rooting against the white men who have been dominant here before. And so I feel like I as a member of that the bad pie slice, the one we want to shrink,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like it's like, well, do you kind of just wish I would leave so that your pie slice would be nicer?
Yeah.
And that's probably like bad and uncharitable of me to think like that,
No.
but that is what pops in my head.
No, I mean, honestly, like the reason why I'm not like a fucking Logan Ball YouTuber, like in everybody's face day to day, is because I feel bad. I feel like I need to, I can't talk. I don't deserve a voice right now.
But that can't be the solution.
Mm, I think right now it's a good one. I think like encouraging other people to like talk about things that they're afraid to say and listening is really important. But wait, when you're talking about the um, that diversity report, I can talk. You, so I worked there. This is maybe 25. No, it was 2014. Yeah,
Mhm.
2014. I remember that at Vox they put out this questionnaire, like about diversity, like because at the time we were, I think, a lot more white dudes. It was probably, if I had to guess, if I could just look on the horizon, see 65, 70% white dudes, 80% white dudes, maybe.
Mhm.
I don't know. It was a high number, but and so they were like looking to diversify, and I saw the trend in the media like, yo, diversity, like criticizing like every industry for not being diverse, and I was like, okay, so we're doing that. Okay, they wanted to gauge the current employees' opinions of, what do you think if we like tried to like engineer some more diversity around here through hiring like specifically minorities or whatever, what do you think it's important to have minorities? Like, there's a bunch of questions, just like how important is it that we have different types of representation in the office? And I was like pro everything, ex- except like I was on the same attitude that you were sort of about the machine learning guys. Is like, well, like it is kind of just like the white nerdy guys that care about this stuff. So like, shouldn't we be the like just because like we want more representation doesn't mean that the white nerdy guys aren't the ones that are the biggest fans of this, and I have been fans of it for so, like, you know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
was saying the same. Had sort of thought pattern that you had about like, well, of course it would be nice, but like, oof, just like look at history. We've been the ones with the damn computers. This is very stereotypical. This is some problematic language here, but anyway. Um, and so I sort of was like, no, just hire the people that are best for the job. Don't go out of your way to hire diverse. Hire the best. And I think since then my attitude has been changed, and I feel like the people that float to the top is obvious. Are like typically white dudes because of like all the different like ways in which they've benefited from like different sorts of like, whether it's family, money, network, location. There's a bunch of reasons why there would be more people who seem like the best, and it is up to us to make an effort to like just, I don't know, get outside of our bubble, listen to more types of people, and especially in the media, like what you guys are doing, which is like explaining technology. Dieter, he didn't tell me. He told me why he thinks like doing what he's doing is so important, but he didn't tell anybody else. And I told him he needs to tell people. But he said we make the tools, and then the tools make us. And so the best thing we could do is to learn about our tools. And I think we're all tool users, and so we need all different kinds of people talking about those tools and critiquing those tools. And so, especially where you work and where I worked, diversity is really important.
Hmm. Yeah, so my thinking lately is I want to figure out. I just want to go where it's not like I'm wanted, but just like nobody rolls their eyes, like, oh no,
Uh,
another white man is doing this thing. Another white
no,
man has
I
an
know what you mean.
opinion.
I guess that's why I've just been. That's why I kind of have. I mean, it sounds bad, but yeah, that's why I haven't. I just been like sort of not doing anything.
So like what's the next machine learning? What's something that's uncool and unpopular and unsuccessful and nobody minds if you dabble in it?
But I think that is a big problem though. Is like the thing is why do we want to be alone?
Why do we want to be alone?
Yeah, and like
I the thing is I want to have something I can not feel bad about, like striving to be the best at, you know?
yeah, yeah. I don't ever feel bad striving to be the best. Well, yeah, I guess what you're saying is like if you strive, say I'm a musician, right, and I strive to be the best, like I don't know, rapper or like singer, whatever,
Mm.
and I get popular, you're like a part of you is like, well, white privilege, male privilege, all this stuff. Like, how much of it was me, and how much should I feel bad that my privilege is a result of my place? Like, you want to work in a world where, um, mm, I don't know. Do you know where I'm going with this, though?
Yeah. Yeah, you shouldn't.
I
I
know
would
what you mean.
uh, it's a disincentive to do things, and I feel like that is like it's a it's a problem with uh, I don't know, guys in general right now. Like if you look at like guys aren't doing very well in like school. They aren't getting nearly as many like higher degrees, and they are sort of like they're way more likely to just be living with their parents, you know. And I feel like there's like a kind of a generation of guys that's kind of like it's like, well, nobody really wants me out there doing
Hmm.
stuff. And to be
I
honest,
know.
being out there and doing stuff is really hard, and I would rather play video games. And
Yeah,
this, and my parents thankfully have a spare room for me, so I guess I'll play video games, and it seems safer, you know. But
it's
I
good.
think
Like,
that
so
like
you
kind of
feel like,
it's kind of soul crushing after a while.
yeah. You feel like so that's why we needed to re-engineer the man, because nobody wants a man around, but the guy that everyone's happy to see all the time is and we got to think of a new name for it, and then that's the guy that all these guys that feel
Oh,
like they're not welcome out in public,
so you're like,
they now
this
can
is like
embody this spirit.
man 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I don't know if there's been a 2.0 yet.
Okay,
This
okay.
might
Well,
really be the real 2.0. Like I don't think there's been. Can you think of another reinvention of
what if,
man through
hey,
history?
what if it's man 1.0? What if we were just
Uh,
in an alpha
that was
and beta
beta.
period?
True. This is 1.0. But I would say
Gold,
the
gold
problem I would
master.
say the problem I would say is that I think that this character, man 2.0 or 1.0, would
Mm,
have to be a gender that anyone can be, or like a character that anyone can inhabit,
mm,
no matter their P or the G.
okay.
So the thing that I like, so like, yeah, we like the obvious. We need to look at the male and the female, the
Okay.
stereotypes of them, and we need to scrap them for parts. What do we like? What do we don't like? I'll tell you what I like about women that I want to have.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Cooler clothes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, the being able to express my emotions
Mm,
and like openly not bottle things up. That's a good thing. The thing is, I'm afraid to be critical of women. I asked somebody earlier today, and she said just like the meekness, like the agreeable. You feel you were saying that you feel like someone like sitting back and being agreeable is a good thing, and I feel like it is sometimes too.
yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. There's
Well,
it's
like
it.
oh, the actually, she said it was like the dependent, the like the damsel in distress, like constantly dependent on other people, just like basically an object,
Uh,
like
okay.
objectifying yourself almost and being, yeah, utterly dependent is
So
like the sort of bad, the super amplified bad version of what females are, whereas the super amplified bad version of what men are is like aggressive, don't listen to anybody, ignorant, like
right.
strong men.
So there is an aspect. This is where I maybe slightly disagree with the project
Okay.
of it being entirely gender
Well,
neutral,
okay.
be, because I understand that this like damsel in distress is like assumed as like the most problematic thing in the world. I really don't. I don't think so. I understand that like if you're just fainting all the time and you just need everything done for you, that's more being childish. That's I don't think of that as a characteristic of a woman. I just think that that's a kind of a childish type of
But
thing.
it is. I mean, like
Um, but
the
but
trophy wife, just like sort of just like a hanger on, like a like an object of a man, like belonging to a man almost,
well,
and
okay.
orbiting around him.
Maybe it would be better if I do this from the straight perspective of biology, right?
Okay.
You want to have like a really kick-ass movie hero, right? And it's really fun when you have a kick-ass. Like Scarlett Johansson is a kick-ass movie hero, and she's she's done a bunch of films like this recently. And then I saw what was it, that Charlize Theron movie where she's a kick-ass movie hero, and that's really entertaining, but it's also very close to fantasy. Like you, as just as far as actual strength, um, by and large, men are stronger than women. And
Mm-hmm.
if we define the ideal role, like the man 2.0 that anybody can be,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're giving a leg up to men if I'm not saying you were saying this is what it was, but if we put one of the things to be physical strength, you know, then people who are
Nah, this is like a what?
if you know what I mean, you're giving someone a biological advantage, and you're saying being physically weak is inferior. I'm not
Nah.
saying you were saying that. I'm saying were you to put one of the things of man 2.0. So what I am actually saying, I'm sorry, this is a really convoluted way of saying this,
Okay.
but if you pick certain things that are actually fairly biological, and then you say um, that this one way of doing it is the ideal. Then
Mm-hmm.
if there's a biological influence on that thing, then you are either in an advantage or a disadvantage at fitting
Uh,
in.
so
You
you're
know,
saying
if being an
yeah.
emotional rock was the ideal, you know, certain people who are more emotional are going to have a harder time fitting it than people who are less emotional. But I think we kind of need both. We need, like,
Um,
it's not, I don't think
but I think
everybody
you're still
can.
doing binary. I guess I'm saying man 1.0 is more like it's like a starting place, and people can branch off from that, and they can become whatever they want. But I feel like right now we don't even know what we want because all we've had were these two options. And so
Well,
the best thing we could do right now is basically mash them up.
I as a guy, I feel like I know a little bit better what I at least personally want. I feel like a lot of guys, a lot of like my brother's kids, like their sons, they really like rescuing. They really like being a hero, you
You
know?
know, I don't know if we talked about this on our old podcast. Shout out to our old podcast, still running probably. But anyway, when I was before I can even remember, my mom told me that I wanted to be a policeman,
Hmm.
and I did want to help people.
I wanted to be a firefighter. And I'm not saying that women can't be those things or can't want to be those things, but I'm
Hmm.
saying that um, physically, in some situations, men have an advantage at being like a physical hero, but
Hmm.
also that if you got rid of all the damsels in distress, not, you wouldn't have anybody to rescue. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying we should
Yeah, who
intentionally
cares?
create victims to rescue, but there's nothing I feel like inherently morally inferior about needing to be rescued sometimes. There's not like a flaw in you that you have
Well,
fallen
it's
into a situation.
it's a kind of like it's more like a permanent inaction where you constantly depend on other people.
Well, that's the childish version of it. But like
Yeah,
I
but
feel like
I guess
there's
that's
a
the super
push.
amplified femininity. Is just like,
No,
being
no,
pampered, 20 like
no.
yeah,
That is
just
not
being a
what
fucking decoration.
that is not my amplified version of femininity is like a grandma who has put in the work and she doesn't give a fuck anymore because she has put in the work and people are going to listen to her about what she thinks about things because she works so hard. Like uh,
Wait, what?
I don't think of a helpless person or a childish person as some sort of like a cartoonish version of femininity. Um, and so if that is that I would agree that that would be a bad cartoon version of femininity.
Well, that's what it is.
But the thing is that grandma is not the physically strong person who's going to beat up her assailant. But you can go rescue grandma, and she's going to be happy with that. And there's no moral failing or sort of like intellectual weakness of grandma that got her in trouble with the
Hmm.
robber or whatever this fantasy situation is. It's just the fact that she's just physically weak, and there's nothing wrong with being
Okay,
physically weak.
I think I have a better way of thinking about this whole
Okay,
thing where we can get on the
okay,
same page.
all right.
I think that the man women binary represents things that are true that could possibly be true about humans, which is that they could be very active, they could be very passive, they could be very communicative, they could be very shut off. They could be, like these are all things, and we've separated them into two different characters, the man and the woman,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, for some reason it worked out that society, like they could raise the baby. There's like like other societies have not just like the babies are raised by like big families and stuff, whatever, but.
Mm-hmm.
But these two characters have worked out for one reason or another, splitting up the ideas of what is possible about any human has been split off into these two identities so that we can have certain expectations about the behavior of those people based on their external appearance. It's easier. So that's what's been going on for a long time. But really, all those characteristics that are considered masculine and all those characteristics that are considered feminine are available to both sexes from this point forward.
Almost all.
Is like, I guess, my grand pronouncement.
I would say
everyone.
Almost all the personality and proclivity ones, absolutely. There are some actual biological differences that make people different.
Yeah, sure.
But
I
yeah,
think you'd think of that as like, oh, you have red hair? I've got brown hair.
But I do think
yeah, penis. I got a vajiji.
I think there's an aspect though that it's value to have a pair of parents, for instance, with someone on each end of most of those different trait spectrums.
I think most people would agree that like a lot of the best relationships are like complementary characteristics, but I would say that's not necessarily. I wouldn't like say it has to be a rule or anything, but I would say that's how a cookie crumbles a lot of the time. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it can be helpful. I mean, for instance, like a dream of mine is that I could find someone who is incredibly successful at her job and doesn't want to give it up. And so if she had kids with me, maybe she'd take like 6 months off to be with baby, but then after that I could be a stay-at-home dad. And I would love that. I really like helping out with kids. I feel like that's part of my personality. And I would probably benefit from being around someone that was part of.
Gals but I don't think that's everybody. Want that? Paul's out there.
Not after everything I've said about grandma. but you know what I mean? But I do think it's helpful to have one of each, though.
Still though, I feel like pairing them off into into the binary is the bad. I'm saying like it's like a whole cloud of shit that there's so many different possibilities that the idea that there would always be an identifiable man and woman in any relationship going forward into the future, like say this is like 300 years, things are a lot more progressive. If you could still look at like any relationship and see a definite man-woman dynamic, I don't know. I hope, I mean, maybe you would sometimes, but I think it wouldn't necessarily be the norm at all.
But so outside of this, let's get outside of like actual like romantic partner relationships. I think in the larger world, it is really helpful to have people with different personality traits together. Not everybody is a leader, or at least in every situation, not everyone is a leader. It's helpful to have someone who is willing to follow like really well. It's good to have someone who has ideas, and it's good to have someone who's an implementer of ideas. It's good to have someone who's organized. It's good to have someone who is, well, I don't know about messy. Sometimes I feel like there's a free thinking that can be involved with being messy. Maybe we just get rid of all messy people. But it's just like I feel like there are a lot of complementary traits, and so like I feel like when we try to define, I feel like a lot of like I listened to your third wave feminism episode with Hannah.
Yes, Hannah wanted to on Anchor. Hannah wanted to talk, just a random person, but she wanted to talk about third wave feminism. I was like, all right, I don't know what that is. Let's do it.
I just think defining success for women as being exactly like the classic concept of a man, I feel like it's just really terrible for society.
No. I would agree too, and I think that's I heard what third wave feminism is like saying, okay, well, like before that, maybe second wave was like, we can be like men, we can be aggressive, but I guess third wave is saying like, all right, well, there were some things like about the character of the woman that are very good, and we want to be those, whether or not they are stereotypical.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I think
I really think it's gonna fuck up our society beyond the amount that's already fucked up if we discourage women who want to or prefer to stay at home with their kids. If that's what they want, and we make them like feel bad because they didn't go after it, and
yeah,
in a work sense, like that's not good of us for that woman, and it's not good of us for that those children.
yeah,
Like I think it's a hugely valuable thing. Like I'm obviously didn't turn out great, but most of my mom's kids turned out wonderful. Most of my siblings are wonderful because she spent a lot of time with us, and it was great. It was super
yeah.
helpful.
Uh, I think what were you saying before that? I can't remember. Are you taking
Third
a big gulp
wave.
of something? Oh yeah.
Sorry, I was getting thirsty. Just thirsty. Wait,
Um.
can we aim at some sort of conclusion?
mm,
Are you still into the man 2.0?
no, but it was more like a comical idea to like say where do we go from here, and
Right.
it's a bad idea to just like like my I wrote down Dave Bowie. That I feel like if you just look at that and then basically everybody just sort of aim for that,
Okay.
different
I get
varieties, different phases of his career, and
right.
everybody picks their favorite Bowie. It's
Pick your
that's
favorite
sort of
Bowie.
it's a spectrum that like he did really like
Uh,
grace the entire spectrum of man woman, I
yeah.
believe. And so I think if you just choose any Bowie and then we go from there.
I think that's one way to go about it. I guess, yeah. So my hope for people is that you would not. I feel like be accepting of where you find people on a personality spectrum, on all the different divisions of personality, and be kind of excited to see how you can work with that person who is that specific blend, but not be surprised when you find like someone is one gender and a personality that you didn't expect. It's not useful to be surprised, and definitely don't be negative about somebody who is, one gender and like the personality that maybe fits with that stereotype. I feel like that's not. And then because there's personality, there's actual character, like which is something that you can be critical of other people if they're bad, and then there's what people want for themselves. Like they maybe view some parts of their personality as a flaw, and other parts as a strength. So I feel like you can work with that people in that sense. But when you just see somebody is like I feel like the hate on like mansplaining
Mm-hmm.
kind of got out of hand to the point where it's like I get it, like, and I really I kind of took it to heart because I love explaining things. I really
Yeah, me
really
too.
love.
It's really
I'm a huge
unfortunate.
yeah. So always try to ask before I talk about something. But the idea that a guy explaining something is mansplaining, it's maybe he just wants to talk about something, and you can tell him that you don't want to talk about it, or you could, if you want to hear what he has to say, you could listen to him. You don't want to just assume that there's something nefarious happening just because the guy is trying to explain something he's passionate about.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd say it's still around though. You know, just we're on media Twitter, and we get fucking bombarded with every trend. Like you get like just it gets branded into you. Every single meme branded into
Mm.
my mind. So I don't know if the mansplaining idea has penetrated the masses as much as we feel like it has. But I do think guys feel like they know everything, and they do. I mean, I think it could. I wish there was just like a nicer way that we could move forward.
Yeah. Well, you can assume a
Because it's
guy
like
who. Oh,
it's
go ahead.
like the attack, like the girl, the Hannah. She was like, girls just this girl that was talking about third wave feminism was like, they just say that women are better than men and men are bad. It's like, and it sort of is like that is the blunt argument, and that is harsh. So,
I've heard so much of that on Twitter. Just ban all men,
yeah,
unfollow a man day, kill all men. I've seen a lot of that.
yeah. So
Which
like
is
it
so
is
weird.
like I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It's hard to like keep just like getting slammed with that a little bit, even though I'm trying not to take it personally, and I don't kind of, but you start to be like, what? You just look at yourself and you say, what's wrong now? What's
Yeah.
you just say, what did I
What did I
do?
do?
What did I
And
do?
the thing is, it's true.
And it's probably helpful. I think I probably thought, oh, that was bad, and then
Yeah. I,
I think it's been constructive
and
to be criticized, but I think I'm not an abnormal
I
person.
do.
I think most people shut down.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of a shutdowner, but I do hear a lot of anecdotes from friends and coworkers who've like been mansplained at really hard. I was like, man, when you explain like that is shitty. What just happened to you? That's terrible. But like it doesn't mean like you have to assume that every time a guy is long-winded about something that he's telling you about means he thinks you're an idiot. Um, you know, it,
Yeah, that doesn't. If you're ever caught, if I'm ever explaining everything, it's just because like I'm so excited to talk about it, and I want you to see all the things that I'm seeing in my mind,
yeah,
so that we can move forward in our conversation from there in some cool way.
uh-huh.
And I'm just trying to get you up to on the same page as me. And oftentimes I'm deep in the book.
I, I like spend a lot of time like stoked on an idea, and to for anybody to pretend like they're interested in what I have to say is so exciting for me.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I have to like
Me
try
too.
to recognize that like, oh, they were just like being
They
nice.
were just asking out of
They were
polite.
being polite,
Yeah,
or
I
maybe they just
know.
wanted the 30-second version, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
it's just sad
Yeah.
sometimes.
It is really sad. I know. It happened to me the other day. I was like, oh, you don't want to hear about this. You were just being nice. Okay. I was explaining Casey Neistat's whole 368 thing. I was like, you see, all the Team 10 has the Team 10 house, you know.
uh, yeah.
Uh, well, I was going to ask, because last time we talked about it, and I don't even remember your stories. What What's your experience with women? Talking to them. I remember before you said that you wish you were just text, that you had no body.
Mm.
So that's a good way to like sort of start it off, is you feel like you're a better talker than
I
like
better.
physically like charming, like going around
I better.
I don't know.
You know what's interesting is I'm better at writing things. I've also discovered in the past couple of years, actually, there are a lot of things I can't write. Like, I have a lot of opinions on like stuff like science and politics and stuff. I can't really write about them because I can't form super clear thoughts on them, and I can't feel like certain about them. But there are a lot of things where I can kind of write myself into a really sounding way cooler than I am. But when I'm, face to face with a woman, I tend to, well, it's kind of basically face to face with anybody. There's no cap on the potential topics, and I can come across really, really dumb, and
Mm-hmm.
I am definitely not nearly as good at directing the conversation as they're steering the conversation towards my favor.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've developed a style of writing where I can always come out looking kind of cool or at least lovable.
Is that just
Um,
because you have like time to think about it?
yeah, it's kind of I think when I write I kind of have a spin on things.
Yeah, of
Like
course. I mean, most people, maybe. I mean, not everybody.
I don't think I'm as skilled at spitting things when I'm talking out loud. Um, But let's see. What do you mean otherwise? As
Like,
far
what
as
was your first girlfriend?
someone in high school,
What
um,
was it like?
I I get really, 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 really in my head when I'm like on a date. Um, and I think I've gotten better at this over time. But like I'm thinking, like, well, should I hold her hand? Should I make a move? Should I ask her
Like,
something? Or
what was the age? What was the context? Give me the deets.
why do you want all these details all of a sudden?
I'm gonna
We've been
tell you.
talking
I'm
for
gonna tell you
80
one. Do you
minutes.
want me to tell
We've
you
been
one?
talking for 80 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I talked to Evan Rodgers the other day, and he told me that his favorite podcast length is 3 hours.
I can't do 3 hours, dude. I don't got the stamina.
All right. Well,
I mean, I'm not trying to be evasive. I think like,
I think we haven't even gotten to the anything.
oh man. Okay. Let's see. Nothing, huh? Because it's important of how we actually treat people in
Well,
real life,
um,
not just what our theory of how it would be nice to treat people, but how we actually do in
how we
practice.
have, I guess. Yeah, I guess like that was what I wanted how I wanted to start, but then we got on a tangent. But I think,
Yeah.
do you want me to tell you the story I'm thinking of that like I was hoping maybe if I tell you this, you'll be like, okay, here's something that's like that.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
Um, I don't know. This is sort of I have maybe two things. My first girlfriend, I guess, was in like seventh grade, and I was trying to be a cool kid, right? Um, she was like kind of a popular girl, so yeah, I was always like trying to like wear the coolest clothes, make sure her hair is good, stuff, whatever. I asked her out. She said, yeah, it would like change my life. I was like, holy shit, what do I do now? And just like you said, when was your first girlfriend?
In high school.
Yeah, I don't know if it was would have been worse for you in seventh grade, but seventh grade, like I was terrified. Like I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do at all.
Hmm.
Went on like one date with her, went bowling with her family. It was, it was a seventh grader date. But like I could never like work up the confidence to talk to her. And when I saw her, I would just say hi and I froze up. I wouldn't know what to say. I didn't want to say anything wrong.
Hmm.
I just like wanted it to, I liked her a lot. Like, it's not that I didn't want to talk, it's that I didn't know what to say. And that there's so much pressure behind it. Just through like watching like Boy Meets World or like like any show about like a date, it's all, or Doug or whatever,
Hmm.
with Patty Mayonnaise, Topanga
Yeah.
on Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
Like it was like this was my fucking Topanga, and this is it. I'm so happy. Like yeah, and then when we would talk on the phone too. But anyway, I never knew. I probably only said like IRL when I was face to face with her. I probably said like less than 100 words,
Hmm.
even though it was maybe a 3 week relationship. And then she broke up with me and she called me and wanted to break up.
Hmm.
Probably because I mean, almost definitely because I never talked to her. I was too afraid.
Yeah.
And she was like, we don't even know if we have anything in common. Like, he doesn't talk to me. It doesn't seem like he likes me. Uh, and then I just decided that I hated her. And I told like one of my friends to tell her like something mean.
No.
And like suddenly, because I had only ever seen in like, I thought it was sort of just the way I thought it needs to go. Like, there's no, I can't be like broken up with. Like, this doesn't just end. This is like, this needs to be a traumatic event and we need to hate each other. I had never even seen or could conceive of the idea that we could amicably part ways
Uh,
and still, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it needed to be like, fuck her, man. Like, my friends were like, man, she's so, like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't good for you. Like, it had to be like all bad. And she needed to be bad too now. Um, and that's how that do you know? It's kind of weird, right? Like, so that was like my first relationship with girls, or like my first like that really like fucked me up for a little bit. Like, I decided like after that, like the whole idea of relationships just like messes with your head. You turn into a whole nother person. You're almost like a zombie in pursuit of this.
Yeah.
This is not like this is not productive, and this is the trick of all. This is like the thing that society does to lure you in. This is like I guess where I somewhat start to identify with the incels, right? The involuntary celibates. Although I would say I was voluntarily celibate. I was like, the world is a trap, and girls are the bait,
Uh,
and that attitude like persisted for a really really long time.
I would say, I guess I don't really want to get into like my own personal stories as much, but I don't really have a ton of them because I haven't really dated a lot. But um, the zombie word you use is a really good term for it. Like I become kind of this zombie in when I'm kind of even approximately close to a relationship. Not in all of my conversations with women uh, in every context, um, but the ones that have something to do with actually dating, I am just kind of, um, I guess I'm just like super, I'm super afraid of saying something wrong, and I probably do end up saying something wrong often. Um, I I like to look down and think about what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, and that's not great for a like lively conversation. And I can have a lively
Mm-hmm.
conversation with someone that I feel like 100% safe with, but I've never really felt 100% safe with somebody in a relationship. Um, like that's not on them. That's like on me, like not either not trusting people or not trusting myself. So yeah, that's kind of my relationship history.
Do you think um and I feel like that's not uncommon, right? Like like the idea of women putting men in a trance goes back to like the sirens, right? That's like a old like characteristic that they like the siren song.
I don't. Yeah,
That they have this this power over men to like lure them in zombie like.
I I haven't. I don't think of it in that way. It's more like it's more like being just out of my depth, like being in a situation that I am uh, really lacking in knowledge of and and ill-equipped to be really a part of, you know.
What do you mean? Just the topics that you mean like the conversation that that would be productive here, or the one that you imagine should happen is one that you don't have expertise in? So you're saying, like when you're talking to a girl,
Yeah,
or you mean that you freeze up and feel dumber, like you feel like whether or not the conversation is something you can talk about, you the you just feel dumber.
yeah, I don't know. I guess the zombie term, but not zombie like she's like leading me around with her her seductive ways, you know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I guess maybe I just like lack uh, the emotional intelligence for a relationship. So in that sense, I am just dumb. Or maybe I'm just overthinking everything and trying to make everything into sort of play or some sort of, you know. And so maybe I'm just um, like maybe I'd have healthier relationships if I was just super honest and like everybody would break up with me really fast, but then I'd get to the right person quicker.
Why would being honest make everybody break up to you with you really fast, though?
I don't know, like I think the thing is it's like I have very kind intentions, right? And I can when I'm writing things, I can show kind intentions and I can aim at my ideal morality.
Mm-hmm.
But as an actual person, I'm not that good of a person. Like,
But
if I
wouldn't
was
you
saying
say?
everything,
Do you feel like you tell yourself that?
uh, maybe I tell myself that, but maybe also it's kind of true. Like maybe like I'm kind of short with people. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know. I feel like I let a lot of people down, and I mean in like some small ways. Um, I feel like I'm pretty good with my coworkers because I kind of really try to be kind of like on my best behavior at work. But
Mm-hmm.
in like when I'm tired or it's just it wasn't the greatest day or something like that, like I don't have a lot to offer, and so
I think maybe though, like in general, it's that characterization that men get to believe about themselves, which is that they're the less emotional ones that allow like the the I don't want to say privilege, but the just like allows us like the the possibility of acting badly or acting selfishly more than women
hmm.
because there's an expectation built into the male character. At least I do that. I mean, I'll say it. I think I have, whether consciously or not. I mean, I think I have.
Or sort of like withholding emotion or something.
Yeah, yeah, and saying like, I'm just like I don't have that many emotions. Sorry, I'm not about this.
I
And
guess
then you
it.
and then you leave it to, especially in like relationships, you leave it up to the woman to like guess about what you might be thinking. It's like their job to think in your shoes.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
do
like
get.
that's the emotional, that's called emotional labor, and that's the problem.
I do get asked a lot. What are you thinking? And
Mm-hmm.
I can think all sorts of things. Like for me, it's important what I do and what I act out. But I could be thinking about anything, and it could be bad. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. Like
Yeah. I guess
I
going
think it.
back going back to this whole thing, when I said when we're having a conversation, you need to be able to say things that like might hurt or whatever. I feel like that's just the thing. That's the sort of conversation that you gotta have with, I guess, all people more, is just like we're gonna be vulnerable and we're gonna say some things that just come out without any filter. And please give me forgiveness in advance because I'm
Mhm.
trying to be unguarded. And if both people are unguarded, hopefully, I mean, in my at least what I know about, I don't know, communication in general, that it's better. It like communication happens more
It's
productively.
it's probably better, but I also feel like I've hurt people being kind of unguarded too.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
guess
know.
it's like, yeah, I don't know. But I think in general, the male character, is not. I'm not like revolutionary in saying they bottle things up. And like one way that one characteristic I would throw into Man 1.0 is the ability to disclose emotions so that communication can happen and they don't get like stuck in, I don't know, strong headedness and ignorance.
Hmm. Possibly. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I
I
guess
just think I just think
to be
no.
honest with you, I'm just not in a real great state to be talking about relationships right now. So I feel like
Oh,
we should move on.
oh. Okay. I don't know what else I have to talk about then.
Uh, I think
Mm,
that's like it's a good.
oh, I had a
I'm
good.
sure it's
I had
part of the whole picture, but it's
because you're a computer guy. I got a little metaphor for you
okay.
in my notes here. We've been using binary for so long, right? Man, woman, black, white, bad, good. We've been living
Uh
in
huh.
this axiomatic world.
Right.
and a lot of times we use like computers as a metaphor for the brain. Not a good
Mm.
idea. And sometimes we're even um, boxed in by that metaphor. Just so hopefully, with the advent of like quantum computing, maybe our metaphor for the brain will update, and then quantum is about spectrums and like clouds and potential, right? Maybe maybe that metaphor will be more beneficial for understanding ourselves.
I mean, yeah, there's potential and there's probabilities, but ultimately, like,
What, quantums are still a b or 0 1?
once you measure them. So the idea of a quantum
Fuck.
computer is that a quantum computer is made up of a bunch of basically like weighted coins. This is as far as I understand it, right? So you can like put together a bunch of uh, IBM. Actually, if you want to learn more about quantum computer, IBM has put out this really fun kind of like simulator, like show teaches you quantum computing and kind of like shows a lot about. You basically lets you program an actual quantum computer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like you kind of you set up things that are you're setting up this equation and you have all these probabilities of stuff that you are setting up, and so that it all kind of happens at once, and then but you end up with a binary measurement out of it, as far as I understand it.
Okay. I mean, I was just going for a metaphor. So I'm going to cross that one out.
I mean, the fundamental unit of information is binary. You can't get more granular than binary. Um, and you can make up anything that is continuous out of binary.
Can I? Maybe here's another thing. Remember when I told you a long time ago? This is when I first met you, kind of.
Uh,
I was saying that I feel like I told you I wanted to live alone forever and maybe just have a dog. I thought if I had to be alone, I don't know if I could be completely alone, but maybe just a dog and I could be alone forever and that's how I'd be happy. You remember
okay.
that?
Yeah, something like that.
What did you think about that at the time?
There's something that's really I don't remember what I thought about it at the time, but there's something that's really exciting about escaping from everybody. But I feel like I would shrivel up and then die just alone. I feel alone enough as it is when I see people every day. So if I was truly alone, I would just die. Like
But
maybe I would
you said
figure it out.
you wanted to like have a place where you could do stuff and not have no consequence. You couldn't hurt anybody, right? That's kind of what you said back a little bit ago.
I
You want
I
a
feel like
place.
that's what drives me away from people is a fear of hurting people. But then like I'm miserable alone, so I like go try to find new people who haven't been hurt yet, so they aren't suspicious.
Yeah, but ideally you wouldn't hurt anybody, right? Like ideally you'd construct like a bubble around yourself so that your actions maybe had some sort of delays so that,
Mm,
the
you could
bubble,
revoke them all.
yeah, right? It's almost
Yeah,
like instead of conversing IRL with somebody, you're typing, to go back to that.
yeah, yeah.
Ideally that would be the world, right?
Well, but no, maybe that's why I feel alone. Maybe because I'm reserved in that sense, and I am trying to protect everybody from my errant actions or thoughts. That maybe that's why I do feel alone.
Yeah, maybe. I guess that's what
I think.
I was going back to that because like I felt like that for a really long time and like because I mean I still believe like this idea of like the man woman relationship, like this whole everything is built around that, and it's all fine, but it's also there's so much potential for what I could be. And so why am I even like poisoning my mind in this place with all these people that have bought into this way of being?
Hmm.
Is that how you feel or no?
No, I don't feel like I'm being poisoned by other people.
I 100% do. I mean, I'm trying to be okay with it, but
I feel like I'm not really capable of being what other people hope I am,
yeah,
and that's difficult.
I guess that's yeah. I could be. Well, well, well. We're
Well,
back. Hey guys, we are back. Anyway,
after that short commercial break.
yeah, I don't know if we're. I guess where I was going with that whole thing, about like the being alone thing, is just
Hmm.
the characterization of like the man being the lone wolf, and almost like being like an individual. Like you're supposed to maximize your individuality in life as an idea.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think that's my goal.
That was my goal, tbh. Like I was like, how can I be the most like nothing else that's ever been? I thought
But
that
how
was
do
the
you?
point.
You can't rescue people if you're all alone.
Yeah.
Like my goal would be to be helpful to other people, but I realize that when I'm around other people, like sometimes I'm not helpful to them,
Yeah,
and
that's like the real paradox and like the fucking hypocritical thing about what I just said too is like I did want to be the most unique thing ever, but I wanted everyone to try to copy me.
wait, so you change your mind on these things?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason why I even like left New York and left everybody and broke up with my girlfriend after like 9 years or so was just like this idea that like maybe I should just be alone. Maybe it would be more helpful if I wasn't around anyone
Hmm.
because I felt like I was only hurting people pursuing this like goal of like how do I just be the most whatever the essence of me is, how do I unleash that? And I felt like almost everything I was doing was constricting it in some way. And I wanted to like, I don't know, just get like, I don't know. It was like an idea that is just like baked into me from a really young age, I guess.
But
Is
there's
that
a
not
there,
in you a little bit?
there, I don't know. I really want to be a super individual and the coolest person ever, but there's an aspect that it's like you can't help. It's like you can't do any morally good thing in the world if you don't have someone to do it for, you know?
Is that something you've always thought of then?
I mean, I feel like I don't think about that a lot, but if I really sit down and think about what's most important to me, it'd be to be helpful to someone else.
See, I don't even know what's most important to me. I had like a nebulous vision of like, um, just like individual nirvana, just pure essence radiating somehow.
Radiating on what?
I don't know. I don't really
There'd
know.
be nobody to see the light.
I don't know, but it seemed like what the world was asking me to do. It seemed like the inevitable conclusion of humanity, honestly, was like that we all go off on our own and we don't really want to talk to each other. We don't want to get in each other's way. Like the pursuit of our individual goals seems to be the way we want to give like individual rights and like give people as much freedom as possible to be whatever their their internal spirit drives them to be, you know. And so I wanted to be in some like futuristic world now where like I don't even have to deal with people anymore. Like it's almost like I felt like dealing with other people was primitive.
Well, it is primitive, and but it could be. I just feel like it's part of our fundamental makeup. Obviously, from
But
everything I've
like,
said.
I
I'm
guess
not
I'm
great
saying,
at it.
you remember when we were saying like it requires you to like think like whenever you're not saying what's in your mind, it requires like the other person to think in your shoes. It's almost like I felt like emotional labor, that kind of thinking is primitive. Like that's like mentally exhaustive. You should only really be thinking about like what you want to do.
Hmm.
Ideally, we should strive to create a world so that everyone is acting on their own impulses, isolated enough from everyone else so that they don't hurt anyone else, but basically managing multiple individuals and chaos or whatever, or inhibit or yeah, impulses.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely not my ideal. I feel like my ideal would be that my um, actions line up with what is good for other people. And in order for my actions to line up with other what's good for other people, I kind of need my impulses to line up with what's good for other people. And so therefore I have to find ways to shape myself in such a way that like what is like the core essence of my being is good for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess ideally my impulses would be good for other people, but I guess the concept is maybe they won't be, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad.
Well, I mean, they very well might your impulses may very well be bad for other people. I feel like that's the big fear.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
trick
And
is
so the trick
to
is to,
work on them.
oh, I thought you meant the trick is to dig a hole.
The trick is to to find a way to improve your impulses because I
Yeah.
feel like you just it's almost like I know there are like some people like who like will go off in the woods or something like that, but I, you know, we still hear about those people. How do we hear about them? Maybe they told their story to somebody, or maybe
Yeah.
it's like Walden, you know, uh, Thoreau wrote down because he thought his idea was good for society, so he wanted to tell society about it. You know, like
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like it's kind of like a death to like separate yourself entirely from other people.
Yeah, I know that in a lot of ways. I knew that, but I also had to see it for myself a bit, if you know
So
what I
you're saying,
mean.
yeah, absolutely. So you are you saying you've changed your mind on it some?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I changed my mind pretty quickly, but it didn't take long. I'm pretty I need attention, so that kicked in pretty quick. But yeah, I guess I just feel like it's a shame, but I feel like it's so true, and this is something that I feel like is a message that I would say to most dudes is that like thinking about other people's emotions and that like we were saying emotional labor, it's really hard, and but that's like what it means to be a person. That's like what it is like trying to think about what other people are thinking, try to change it. Like hopefully you're changing yourself for the better, but you're just trying to accommodate and you're trying to live in some sort of harmony with other people. Like it's not about your own pleasures. It's about like I don't know. It's about trying to like I don't know. I mean, you were never an individual to begin with. And so to do your best to know others is to actually know yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yeah. I wrote a long sort of proclamation on this sort of.
Yeah, I
Should
think. Oh yeah. Oh,
should I
you have
read
it.
it?
Yeah, definitely.
It goes a lot. It goes like a lot. This is pretty much where this was my other disclaimer.
Okay.
Um, um, yeah, I feel like emotional labor is like the real glue to society, and um, we don't. Never mind. Whatever. I think emotional labor is really the glue, and like, yeah. I just think it's really hard. Maybe this is the beginning. I'll just read it, whatever. This is maybe not have a context at the beginning, but I would say, like, the world's not so simple anymore. I mean, we wanted the world to be simple, whatever. So many parts of our lives have been constructed around this union and these character types. There's something that feels true about it because it's so embedded into our habits, our conventions, and our norms. But what is the pure, untrammeled human? How do you set that spirit free? We are obsessed with the individual and the unrestricted expression of the individual, as if the individual is the purest form of human, as if isolation might be a kind of utopia. But humans are made of habits, and those habits are learned through the environment, and the environment is made of people. It is through exposure, through being in public and exposed to other people, that you gain the way you talk, move, sleep, clean, cook, laugh, etc. You weren't anything until you were exposed. We're just a throbbing ball of habits, and this is a never-ending conversation. That's it. So, like, if everything is just all about knowing ourselves, in my opinion, the best thing to do is just, like, facilitate communication, whatever that means. Maybe it's to connect the world. It's a Facebook goof.
Yeah, I think there's something that's really powerful about. I mean, this is kind of what I was saying right off the bat. Like, there's something powerful not just about exposing yourself to other people and their interests and their habits and stuff, but also kind of making yourself, um, I don't know, liable to other people. Like, um, like other people make allowing yourself like allowing other people to have a role in your life where they can kind of call you on your bullshit.
Yeah, definitely. Someone that knows you're in. I guess it's like if you know someone's intentions, like you said, your intentions are always good, right? Like if you both guys are both on the same page that we like each other and we would never hurt each other, then yeah, you can say anything to anybody, right? Like you're only doing it for their own benefit, or else you hope, or there's an understanding that any communication is because you both care for each other, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I said that my intentions are always good. I probably misspoke. I
It was like some other time, but I
My
don't know.
intention is always to come across as a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My my base
but maybe
is
I'm
that
failing at that, so someone can maybe help clue me into to when I'm not. You know.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know how we
But
move forward, but I mean,
well,
I'm excited to see where people go. I'm optimistic and excited. As long as the planet doesn't, get destroyed by climate change, I'm excited to see where people go.
yeah, I think it is the good. Like I think
Oh shit.
the
Sorry, I
what's
just
up?
had a notification, but I changed all my notifications to bird sounds. I don't know who it was, but they were a turkey.
Wow. Uh, yeah, like I have expressed like this kind of feeling a little bit like uh, society maybe doesn't want me around, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of clear from this conversation that's not like the right reaction for me to have, or even if it's true and they really don't want me around, it's not necessarily going to be good for me or for society for me to just like ghost on them.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got to figure out uh, a, a more healthy reaction to these sorts of things.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like people are just model based. And unfortunately, it is most, like you heard in my conversation with Hannah, like it has been mostly white dudes, like telling stories for so long and telling stories about ourselves. I just feel like we don't know how to act because there's been no good solid examples of like what will be like we want to like it's just going to be so hard to move forward going on from where we are because we're always going to have like the vestiges and like the problematic dynamics that came from the characters before that. And so moving forward is going to be slow, I think. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but I also think there's
we
some
can't I don't
plenty of positive role models in the past, and there's plenty of like methods that the society has used to live together productively and in a healthy
yeah.
way. And like
I guess maybe the
you
idea
can't just throw everything away without like having a solid replacement.
yeah, I think we just got to scrap it for parts. You know what I mean? Like I think there's good and
Well,
bad things everywhere.
yeah, at
But
least assume that there are some parts.
but I think the reason why we feel clueless is just because it is like an about face sort of. It is like it feels like a bookmark. It feels like we want like um a, a like a black and white shift for like representation. Like we would like a world where that or like a media that like visualizes the world the way it is right now, and we would like a world that has like a name for every gender in the spectrum and has been saying maybe there's like whole traditions based around the different gender. Like there's been society. You know what I mean? Like there's so much of our culture just rooted around those two characters that they feel inevitable and they feel true. And I think it's just going to take a really long time for like the new things, the new ways we want to be, to feel as authentic. And I think that maybe this is a weird way to talk about it, but do you know what I'm going for right now? I don't know.
I see that as your goal. I don't think those are necessarily my goals. I don't think that nearly as much. I'm all for throwing away like negative um, parts of gender roles and stereotypes, but I think there is a lot of usefulness uh, uh, in the two genders, and a lot of what I've seen in the past years of trying to erase like definitive differences between genders is is sort of has been demeaning to both.
Mm.
It's made it seem like it's not valuable to be a certain way, and like sometimes, yeah, it's not valuable to be a certain way if that's like morally reprehensible, but it is valuable and can be super valuable to be in a certain way if you know if that's that's who you are and that's like something you're born with. I don't know, just trying to escape a nature uh, instead of embracing a nature like seems kind of dangerous.
The thing is, though, I feel like the whole thing that I was trying to say is that we define ourselves, and I don't know what's natural, but I would like to allow the possibility of anything anybody wants.
Hmm.
You know, and I do think the nicest thing I'll say about the male and female genders is they're good old. They had a good time. They got us here,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, it doesn't mean they're. I mean, I think there's great things about both, and I'm excited. I'm excited to watch them change.
Right.
I'm excited to watch them maybe disappear completely. Like I always envision this moment in the future where like maybe we have a holiday to remember the genders.
Gender Remembrance Day.
Yeah, and like maybe it's 200, 300 years, and people are like kids have to learn about it, like what the. So and so like so you have a penis, so they would have called you a man, and you're a woman. They would have called you, or you have vagina and boobs. You would have been more like a woman. I mean, this is blunt categories, guys. Sorry. I mean, this is how they did it back then. Uh, uh, yeah. So then they dress up in pants and a suit if you're a guy, dress if you're a girl, and like this is what it was like, guys. And I love the idea that the kids find it so like stupid and quaint.
I mean, it is an entertaining sci-fi, but I think there's uh, I feel like there's just a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more to it of why and how people are different.
Um, yeah, I just in some ways it seems like I'm like restricted by something, but I don't. Does it feel like I'm like painting people into a box, or are you painting people into a box?
I mean, it's very possible that I'm the one painting people in a box here, but I don't know. Have you heard this stuff where it's like in countries where there is more um, like more freedom for women, they're
Mm-hmm.
more likely to choose um, like people professions. Like they're more likely to be teachers or um, like stuff that involves or like nurses, stuff that involves interacting with people more than like
Yeah,
the
it's because that's the work that guys don't do because they're like that's girl stuff, man. I don't think I do. I don't feel I do.
but there's also like
It's also the jobs of like they yeah. It's
but
like
it's
I
also
mean it's
like
hard
a
to
it's also a proclivity. I feel like I think it's a possibly an innate proclivity that's not
it
just
very
just culturally determined.
possibly may be, but I don't think so. I would say no, and everything I've read about it is no. But uh, I mean, I just think it's like it's so everywhere, and it's been that this dynamic has been around, and I mean, it's based off of the sizes of our bodies. Like it's not,
Yeah, but like I mean, like when you hang around with kids, like it's not like they're just like you couldn't indoctrinate them this fast. Like
yeah,
they are very like different as far as like
hmm
the it's not always but it's very common that the girl like I feel like as a boy I had a buddy. I'm sure I've said this anecdote before, but like
hmm
I had a buddy whose parents weren't into weapons, so they took all the guns and swords out of his Lego collection.
yeah,
So what did we do? We just took the little sticks and made those into swords, and we made our own guns out of Legos because Legos are really useful in that way. And like we just made a bunch of weapons, and that was just sort of like what we were just felt kind of very automatically into. And then you
hmm
also see like a lot of like the desire to be like nurturing and like have dolls and stuff. Not always, but it's definitely more common among girls. And I just don't think we are that adept at brainwashing children to think like that, like immediately out of the womb. Like I think there is something that is pretty innate in that.
yeah. I know what you're saying.
And like there are gender roles in the animal kingdom.
Yeah,
Like uh, typically like the man will act like this way, and like
yeah,
I feel like was it with bears like the male will like eat the cubs if he's like stays around, so like the mama
yeah,
bear has to like kill him or drive him away or something like
yeah. I guess my whole thing about hmm, okay, so I would say there's like I've heard things that back up what you're saying, which like that are just like I hid a, I hid a, or we raised our kids without any guns, no weapons. They never even seen a gun. But the other day, my son was eating his peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he bit it into the shape of a gun and started shooting his sister. That was like a real like I heard this lady talking about there's a lot of scientists talking about like the differences between men and women in the development phase when they're in the womb, and
Mm.
so and the conclusion of that was like it's a spectrum, man. There's a lot of different things. There's not just like a black and white thing, but somebody had that anecdote, and she's like, yeah, I mean there is. I mean, what am I supposed to say to that? Because there is something real about it. Maybe, but I don't know. And then the counter argument is like culture seeps in. You have no idea. It's like even at a young age, somehow it gets in there.
Yeah, but I guess one of the things is like if you assume that it is not entirely culture, that like some
Mm-hmm.
kids like uh, some kids like dolls and some kids like guns and don't even gender that, but the idea that you would discourage a kid from their interest in war or their interest in
I would discourage a kid's
like
interest in war.
interest in dolls. Well, I think a lot of that comes from the desire to like, it's sort of a kill the bad guys. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the way I've seen. Like, I feel like my brothers try to model this. Like, they understand this thing in their sons. Like, their sons
Mm-hmm.
um, love guns and explosions and
Mm-hmm.
destruction, right? And so they talk constantly about like being the hero, right? They
Mm-hmm.
try to like kind of help direct that like
Mm-hmm.
innate desire into something that is productive for society, right?
Possibly,
But
yeah.
they don't try to deprogram like that innate desire. They try to help direct it. And like
E-
my nephew has paid for his own Minecraft server now, and I
mm-hmm.
like playing Minecraft with him sometimes. And he now that we used to play on my Minecraft server, which was all about just like farming and
Mm-hmm.
building and mining, but he like plays these special mini games that are like pre-programmed. They're just like regular video games, basically, just in Minecraft. But you can't build anything, you can't craft anything, you can't mine or anything. You just go around and like fight things. So like I
Mm-hmm.
had to just break down and say like you know what, I'm just really not into I don't really like the combat mechanics in Minecraft. So it's like I'm just let's today when we play Minecraft let's go on my world again and let's try to build something, you
So he
know?
just wants to fight nonstop.
Yeah, I mean he just wanted to he likes this I don't know. Yeah, it's almost basically a violent video game, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of aggression
Yeah.
and it's it's really good to have someone who is aggressive against bad people.
Mm-hmm.
It's really bad to have someone who's aggressive against everybody. So like that's on his parents to help him sort that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there might be. Look, I don't know. The From what I remember about this lady who talked about the development of the womb, it's just like okay, there's like the transformation of the genitals. There's like different hormones that happen during certain times, during certain weeks, and so the timing of that hormone, the amount of that hormone, the
Mm.
versus this other one. There's so many different factors that like it's not a spectrum between man and woman. It's more like a mix of different traits of both, all in one, all in each.
And I mean that sounds pretty accurate to me. It's just that you're gonna end up with more of one
Yeah,
typically in one of the sexes, and
yeah,
therefore you shouldn't like penalize or freak out that they happen to have those typical traits for their sex. Like that
yeah,
shouldn't be something that you are like frowning upon. Like, oh, you're being such a typical girl right now because you want to play with dolls. Like that, I feel like that's just as
hmm
destructive as like forcing someone to play with dolls who doesn't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I want to believe they're not. There's no biological basis to any of it, but I would also say that even if there is, that doesn't mean that like the men that would be, if they were say it's totally like yeah, there's real biology to aggression or whatever. I think that human beings uh, have the capacity to learn, learn how to be different. Like, look, a lot of the society's having trouble getting along with you. You're pretty aggressive. You never listen to anybody, etc. I think that human beings have like the longest childhood of any animal. It's
Mm.
like it's almost like 20 years where you're taking in information, and so I,
I
I
think
think
20 years is way too long, by the way. I think
that's how
because
long. It's kind of how it's like until like
well,
25 or something.
okay, but think about what is childhood for? Is childhood to prepare you for adulthood?
It's not for anything. It just happens. Yeah, I guess it's for it's. I guess it's to prepare you. It's just a learning time.
Well, because
It's
I
like
would say I'd say what we're if we start treating people like they're kids all the way until they're 20, like there's no point in that where we're expecting them to become adults, and so we're asking them to be adults after a period of being
okay. When I
entirely
said
children.
kids, I guess I mean that you're developing. Your brain is developing. You're forming who you are, etc.
Mm,
Your brain is still flexible enough to let your environment change big things about you.
yeah. Okay.
That's all. And
So
I just think that there is like that because of that, we have like a unique capacity for creating what through habits like ritual, community habits, media habits, everything can be rewritten and into infinity. I mean, I think that's the coolest thing about us. Maybe I don't know what's nature like. Go back to my statement. How do you unleash like the pure like what is the pure human that we are restricting if we like put too many rules on them? I don't know. I think that that's like the whole thing is like we can never know, and it's like sort of up to us to decide what we are.
yeah, I don't want to feel like we're programming our kids, you know?
No, I would say steeping or brining,
Okay.
and maybe they get a little more pickle juice than the other
Yeah.
kid. It's a like I
Yeah.
said, it's like exposure in society is a dangerous thing. It's you get the good and bad of being around other people.
Hmm.
But if we had know our if we had, I think if it's all about intentions. Like we have the intention to like move forward and respect people of all neurodiversities. Whoever comes up, they're human and they probably have something that's useful to us as a community, something we can learn from because in fact they are just an extension of us. I think that um, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I guess I think like so like take me as an example. I'm a nerdy white guy and I was obsessed with technology. Nobody ever
hmm
told me not to be obsessed with technology.
Yeah.
And then but I also was trained in like, to think about like what is important and useful for society. And so therefore, like, as I grew up, I eventually got a job writing about technology.
hmm
And that helped me think about like, okay, well, I'm going to write about technology, but I'm not going to be 100% pro consumerism. And so I can kind of talk about that. Like, I can, it helps me remember that, like, I like technology, but I'm not going to pretend or assume or promote that, like, this laptop will make you happy, you know? So,
hmm
like, it's important to have those thoughts. But if someone had come along and tried to say, like, we've got too many people like you who are in technology, We should really diversify that. So
Mm-hmm.
like let's try to get you into something else, Paul. Like I don't know, that sounds really dangerous. I don't think that's what you're saying, but like
No,
I just feel like some people might think along those lines.
but you said you feel like you're being just like the pressures, the ambient pressures of like the anti-men stuff is making you feel like what you naturally are at your core is a lover of tech. And if you really want to give in to that impulse, you kind of feel bad about it because there's like this, like I said, ambient anti-men sentiment in the air.
Mm.
And you feel like that's bad. Anything that restricts anybody's like feeling of pure self-expression is bad.
Yeah, so you want to like basically try to develop character without removing. Like I feel like it's a personal job that we all have is to try to develop our own character without um uh like hating on ourselves for like the very specific things that make us who we are, you know? So we can
Yeah,
grow and we can change
you're
to be better
saying,
people, but we
yeah,
shouldn't necessarily try to be a fundamentally different person.
yeah, I know. That's like the crazy part, right? Like, how do you know when to listen to, how do you know when to dab on the haters? And
Yeah,
how do you know when the haters are right and you need to listen to the haters a little bit?
I think that's a really important question.
I know that is the important question. And I think for the
When
most part, dudes need to stop dabbing on the haters and just listen up for a second. Just put a pause on dabbing on the haters just for a sec, for a couple years or so. Listen, because I think that like I dabbed on the haters for so long, and
mm,
I feel like I wasn't listening, and I missed out. I missed out on like information because I dabbed too hard.
oh man. Yeah. What was it? I heard one thing recently. I forget even what the context was, but it's like don't punch down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that really connects.
I'm
I feel
trying
like
to
that's
think of it.
part of dabbing on the haters is like telling yourself like narratives about how like all the people who complain on YouTube about you are like small somehow, you know?
Mm-hmm. Or like stupid.
Yeah, they're dumb or they're jealous or they're small and
Mm-hmm.
um, they never made it and they don't know what they're talking about and that kind of stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's fine to ignore that person if you want to, but like you definitely don't want to attack that person because that's punching down. So I've been thinking about that a little bit. It's helpful. It's helpful because it like keeps you out of um, too many fights on Twitter.
I once that there was a hater one time on the Verge Snapchat when I was snapping for the Verge,
Hmm.
and he called me a hipster because I had this thing called Snap Sitter where I would pick a different employee and they would take the Snapchat home for the weekend and like just do random like ambient life snaps. I was doing that. He called me a hipster, something like that, some derogatory or whatever, and I engaged the
Mm.
hater. I said, "What's up?" And I talked to him for a long time, and I talked to him for a couple years, and eventually he was like, he said like I was just like I thought you were like a nobody, like just a random voice that I could yell at, like et cetera, et cetera. But when I understood like his reasons for hating, I could see a lot of the same things that I would do to other people when I was hating on them,
Uh,
and I don't know. So I guess I'm saying sometimes listen to your haters, not all the time, but I think the dudes in general could listen to some haters.
or you could you could just have
If you engage the haters, you'll be
a,
surprised. I mean, it might not be always good, but I think you'll learn
so
something.
I think that's good advice. Sometimes engage the haters.
Yeah, and engage the haters with openness and like like I said, like if you're vulnerable with them, hopefully they'll be vulnerable with you and you'll have a good conversation and figure out where the anger came from. And maybe they were criticizing you legitimately and but they just did it bluntly because they were so angry, and so there was a more nuanced thing that you actually do want to hear, But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's easy. It's easy to have like that conversation in advance in your own head.
yeah. But
It's
once you're
like,
getting
okay,
hated on,
yeah, okay, like okay, someone's hating on me. I'm just gonna like here. I'm gonna draw a picture of this person in my mind, and they look
hmm
like this, and they smell like this, and they talk like this. And if I said anything to them, they would say this back. Like
hmm
just playing it all out and kind of assuming everything.
hmm
I also think that could be helpful. Like I don't know. I definitely don't want to put going way back to the start of this conversation. I don't want to put any responsibility for like negative male behavior on women. But I will say that there are definitely some guys where you could just let them know that like um, that feels like mansplaining, or that is like uh, like that's like
Oh,
a
you mean like you feel like there are some guys that you can straight up just you don't have to beat around the bush. You can be like,
yeah. And I
you're
feel
fucking
like
being
that.
sexist now, Jack.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably ways, because because if you have that conversation in your mind, it's like the guy's gonna be super defensive, and you're
Mhm.
probably right. Probably a lot of guys will be, but maybe some of them won't be, and
Yeah.
that's a chance to like to,
hmm
to say to save a dude.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're
Uh,
saying it's like having something in your teeth almost these days. I guess I am. I would say that is like what we were saying, yeah, way earlier. Like sometimes habitually, you could be habitually sexist. It could be in your mannerisms, and it could be something you grew up around, and something that you wouldn't even perceive as being like super aggro or toxic masculine. But
uh-huh.
you do it, and up until now, it's been unquestioned because, just like we said earlier, that was just the air. Like nobody thought to question it. It was just the way
Right.
things were. But yeah, I would say like yeah, there are definitely still guys that would be doing things that they wouldn't realize are sexist. That if
Right.
somebody just called out, they would know. They would be like,
Right. If
"Holy
there's
shit, you're
I,
right."
and I feel like there's a hope. I hope I'm one of these people. I don't know for sure, but I would like to think that I'm one of these people that like I'd be really really grateful if
Yeah,
you let me know about a shitty thing I do.
yeah, I would be too.
So that's some. I maybe that's like a hunt hunt for the haters who just want to learn.
I would say like a lot of the attitude is like it's too late. You're
Yeah, I see that too.
and I empathize with that, but I'm also like, come on. I guess it's just because I'm one of them. I
Come
mean,
on, come
like,
on.
what else are we gonna do? I got a couple more years left.
Mm.
But thanks to Evan Rodgers for telling me that 3 hour podcasts are his favorite because that's the reason why I thought it would be okay to go this long.
Evan, you better have listened to this entire thing.
He will.
I expect a DM tweet recap of this conversation to prove that you've listened.
Would you want to come back and talk more about this with somebody else? Like now that we've had this, like we bring Evan in, can we bring other people in? I think that this is an ongoing combo.
Yeah, if somebody hears this podcast and is dedicated enough to have listened to this point, I would say, yeah, if you want to talk, uh, um, if you think you have something to add or something to correct or
Or
whatever.
like anecdote, anything.
Oh yeah, hot anecdotes would be good. Yeah, yeah, I'd be
Like
fine with this. If,
like teasing out like the
but
gray
no
area.
haters. If you're just a hater,
If you want to hate, I'll engage it. I'll listen.
I'll just dab on you.
Luckily, nobody's on Anchor, so there won't be the only people that'll be listening are like people that we actually know. I assume.
Oh,
Maybe.
cool, dude. Well, it's a good conversation. I'm glad we talked through this stuff. I feel like I
Yeah.
have a slightly clearer picture now.
Yeah. Def. I mean, like I said, nature v nurture. I'm going nature, but I'm not, or I mean nurture, but I won't leave. Like, I'd love to keep probing the nature question. It's not like I've abandoned it.
I think it's just a combo, man.
And I think in general, I hope I have faith for dudes to pull out of this, pick a Bowie, and move forward.
Yeah, you can pick a bow, and I think you gotta. I feel like guys need to have a goal. It's
I
not
think people need to
it's
have a goal in general.
yeah. I
Humans,
think people need to have a goal.
not just
I
an
feel
enemy.
yeah, not just an enemy,
We,
not just something to be afraid of, but something that they're like going after.
yeah.
Like, I feel like I've spent a little too much of my life on autopilot, where I'm just like, well, I've got a job, and I'll do my job.
Hmm.
But I feel like I like kind of drift a little bit when I'm doing that. I have to kind of have like a pretty solid purpose that I'm centering my life on to keep going.
My goal personally always, and it goes back to that one thing, like, is to like somehow let, like, it's stupid because I see it. It's exactly what Logan Paul tries to do, and I see the problematic way he's going about it, exactly the way I would have, which is like, you want to free people. You see that
Mm,
people, you see society as like a cage,
mm,
and you feel like everyone has this thing inside of them that they're afraid to let go, and you want to get people there. And this is, I don't want to go back into this, but yeah, like, I guess that's my goal, but I don't really know even, and I think that's everybody's goal, right?
yeah, I think the Logan Paul problem, and maybe I can tie this to where we started off with. Please don't sexually harass people. And it's not about you looking like the best person. It's not, it's not about you talking about being the best person. It's about really actually being concerned about other people. And the Logan Hall behavior, I love his like free yourself message, but how he frees himself is by temporarily turning off his regard for the people around him's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
like like he does a lot of things that are very inconsiderate for other people, like I'm just being a maverick, but like
Mm-hmm.
because he's thinking about it from the perspective of, is he free or not? But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, like, free to do what? Like, free, I would hope, free to be helpful to other people.
Yeah, I know. I guess, yeah, I guess my pursuit of like my life has always been to try to help people free themselves. And it still is that, but I'm just not sure how to do that anymore. I thought I had a good way, like I was going the Logan Paul method, just be the example of a totally freed person.
Mm,
And then people would see that and be like, oh, that. But then I realized, oh, I'm only allowed to be that because like people, like the historical context of what, like, dudes are allowed to like be crazy, like weirdo, like whatever. We don't have to get into it, but I don't know. I do agree humans need a goal, and I feel like the goal should be something that allows people to be freer themselves. But I don't know. I think just the acknowledgement that we're not individuals, we're like this fucking mass of habits, is like a better way to see ourselves, and what can we do with that?
I would just say freedom plus character.
Yeah, and lots of characters, as many characters as possible. Characters welcome.
All right, man. Have a good
Okay,
night.
good night. Bye.
Bye.